late. All right, it is 6:32, and I call the Champaign County Board Environment Land Use Committee to order. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Rogers.
Present.
Esri.
Here.
Patterson. Rodriguez. Storr.
Present.
Thorsland.
Here. All right, thank you. We have a quorum. Jim is no longer on the board, so we're only 6 members, and we're just one shy. I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda with addendum. Moved by Jamala, second by Aaron. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Seeing none, the agenda is approved. We have the minutes from the September 7th, 2023 regular meeting. Before us, I'd first entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Mala again, and second by, I'm going to volunteer, Aaron. Any changes, corrections, or addendums to the minutes that anyone saw? All right, very good. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? None? Okay, we have no public for public participation, so we will open and close that. And move on to communications. Are there any communications for the board? Seeing none, moving right into new business. These are items for information only. 7A, online registration for the October 14, 2023 residential electronics collection. Are there still spots, John?
Yes, there are still spots.
Okay.
So please sign up. We'll probably be accepting new signups right up until Saturday morning.
Okay, very good. So if you have that stuff you want to get rid of, now's the chance. 7B, online registration is open for the October 24, 2023 Illinois Green Infrastructure and Erosion Control Conference. And I assume you have information on that, John, if people are interested.
Yeah, they should go to ccstormwater.org. That stands for Champaign County Stormwater Partnership. You can register there or call our office at 384-3708. It's a full-day conference with both breakfast and lunch, free, at the I Hotel. Should be a good day.
All right, thank you. If anyone's interested, either here or at home, then you know where to go.
And I'd just like to add for the committee's benefit that this is one of the BMPs that our MS4 permit requires. This is a joint conference put on with all the MS4 local entities, City of Champaign, City of Urbana, Village of Savoy, University of Illinois, and the county, with a lot of help from the Soil and Water Conservation District.
All right, thank you. 7C, request for a nuisance ordinance amendment to prohibit roosters in residential districts within 1,000 feet of a home rule municipality. And that's on page 5 and 6 in your handout. Do you have anything you want to elaborate on there, John? Okay. All right, that's, yes, first.
Is there anything of particular interest that regarding the stormwater that's coming up that we should be particularly aware of? It's going to be discussed at this conference on the 24th.
No, not in particular. We try to focus on green infrastructure as much as possible and erosion control. There'll be a site visit to Crystal Lake Park to review the recent improvements that the Park District has made. So that's our one we always try to have a tour if possible, and we'll have a tour of that. There should be some interesting presentations. I'm drawing a blank on what they actually are, but there's a good round of presentations from the city of Peoria in their work on using green infrastructure to manage stormwater issues. There's going to be a presentation by researchers from, I believe, Penn State. And unfortunately, I'm drawing a blank on the rest, but it's a full day of presentations plus the tour.
Is there transportation from the I over to?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
I'm glad you asked. The MTD will be providing bus service from the I Hotel to Crystal Lake Park and back.
Okay, that makes it even more of a thing. So, very good. All right, back to 7C. This is a request from our friend Norm Davis about roosters in residential districts. And the board may want to talk about this a little bit. No, board doesn't want to talk about it. No one wants to crow about it. Sorry, I had to do that.
I guess, John, if you would just please maybe spell out how long if this committee was of a mind to have such an ordinance, how long would that process, estimate obviously take all in all to get it through the work, and then maybe speak a little bit to the enforcement of it as well, if you would, please, just to fill us and maybe people watching this later in.
Well, nuisance ordinance amendments are much quicker than zoning ordinance amendments. They can be amended simply by presenting the proposed amendment at one meeting and adopting at the next. What Mr. Davis is proposing, if it's just simply a rooster prohibition, I don't know that we could have that ready, say, by the November ELUC, but certainly by December we could have that ready. Local municipalities have gone beyond simply a rooster prohibition. They also include a limit on the number of hens and the conditions under which they need to be maintained. We have had more complaints about roosters than other aspects, but I don't know if you were on the committee, Aaron, when we were getting complaints back in, I think, 2012 about someone's hens in the Scottswood area were running loose, and neighbors didn't appreciate that. So anyhow, amending the nuisance ordinance is really much quicker. That doesn't have to be advertised. After it's adopted, the clerk has to have a copy available for review, but it's really pretty simple.
Enforcement?
Well, if we would get, if the committee, if the board would adopt a prohibition on roosters and we found out someone has a rooster, we would make the person aware that it's a violation, give them 2 weeks to get rid of the rooster, and then at the end of that, we would forward to the state's attorney's office. If it's a repeat violator, we could even talk to the state's attorney about getting a process set up for quicker enforcement, but our enforcement process is never quick. You could end up listening to that rooster for a long time before enforcement would ever kick in. And achieve an actual end. That's just the nature of the system that we're in. We can't make people do things. All we can do is take them to court eventually.
So if I'm recalling the details right, some of this, like the proposed B ordinance, has sort of a direct correlation to a particular person in complaint, and then that was going to be resolved or had been resolved anyway?
We're told that this particular rooster will be harvested soon, may already be harvested, but of course Mr. Davis is concerned about the next rooster.
Yep, I can understand that. I don't know how the board feels about that. As a former chicken farmer with a lot of chickens, roosters can be very early up to talk, and you know, it's one thing out in the country in an agricultural area. I think in a residential area, you know, personally, I wouldn't find a rooster appropriate. I have enough dogs in my neighborhood that at least they wait till like 7 a.m. to go out and talk about it. Roosters are, you know, in the summertime, they're like a 3 a.m. thing. And they can be loud. The hens are not so bad. I know would you model it sort of after like the city of Champaign or Urbana, or would you think about the hen component as well, or would you kind of let that be and just work on a rooster?
I would do whatever the committee asks me to do. Obviously, drafting a rooster prohibition is a pretty simple thing, but once you take on the added requirements of hens and things like that, I mean, there's lots of good models to follow. As the committee has learned, the more things you try to regulate, the more turnout you're going to get from the public,
Right.
and that will drag it out. I guess I sort of favor a less is more, and, you know, I would recommend just focusing on roosters, probably.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that, you know, we know the bees have a lot of fans. We would find out how many fans of the Friendly Neighborhood Hen House is pretty quick. And this, within 1,000 feet of a home rule municipality, that wouldn't affect everywhere we have purview. That would be very limited, right?
Yeah, Mr. Davis modeled that on our current landscape waste burning requirements.
Okay.
There's 3 home rule municipalities in the county, Champaign, Urbana, and Rantoul. Well, no, there's a 4th one now, Savoy. So there's 4.
Okay. Well, I think if, you know, do we want to give the staff some direction on this? Just, I see one person, Chris? No, you want nothing to do with banning foghorn leghorn?
This seems to be not just a rooster problem, but furniture, non-working vehicles, down trees, kind of, it's a, the sort of thing that might be covered under a municipal ordinance. And I respectfully suggest that that perhaps some of this area might be incorporated in the city of Champaign if they'd like to see those sorts of ordinances enforced. I don't really want to pile more stuff on planning and zoning or the state's attorney.
Okay. Kyle, thoughts?
I guess I would just say in response to Chris that I think in certain situations when something is against the rules and people find out, they comply without necessarily needing it to be enforced. I mean, obviously not everybody's going to be like that, and you're right, we don't have a lot of resources to enforce that, but I think it's important for us to make rules about what's right and what's wrong instead of the practicality of necessarily doing something about it. So yeah, I'm supportive. And the municipalities have it, so I mean, it's not like it's the only policy in the state or something crazy.
Right, yeah.
In and of itself, I guess I'm not opposed to, you know, an ordinance that simply bans roosters, but kind of like Chris, from what I've seen, we have a lot more issues with, like, say, the just totally overgrown yards and yard waste and stuff like that, where that to me would be more, if I had to rank priorities of, like, say, just those 2 issues, the yards, overgrown yards are just nothing done with. People can't walk down the sidewalks. That to me appears to be a more pressing issue than the roosters. But in and of itself, I guess if we would want to tackle the roosters, I don't have too big a problem with it. But, and also like Chris, I mean, there's no doubt it adds more on everybody's plate, you could say, which we're already, as we know, kind of stretched thin in this county, you could say. So I guess, kind of live with it, live without it at this
Yeah.
point in time.
Mala?
When I worked at the state attorney's office, I worked there for approximately 5 years, and I handled 2 ordinance violations. So I don't think that the state's attorney's office is going to be swamped with all these ordinance violations. It's not something that they can handle. They're actually relatively simple. So if we're concerned about enforcement and burdening the state's attorney's office, I don't necessarily think that that's an issue that we have to worry about.
Yeah, and Chris's solution is to wait until they're annexed. And, I don't know how many people are going to annex over a rooster. I don't think I've ever seen anyone petition to be annexed because they're annoyed with a rooster. I don't want to sound like a rooster hater, but I think that if it's a really simple wording and not a lot of effort, that maybe it would be something to bring before the board. We could see what it says, see how it looks. And then we'll find out how many rooster fans there are out there because they'll come to the meeting and tell us all about it, and see where we go from there. So I would make this a high priority in a rush. This rooster situation that Mr. Davis is worried about appears to be on its way to resolution. And, if a rooster was making noise in my neighborhood, there would probably be a couple of people in my neighborhood that would resolve the situation on their own. So, it is a rooster. Yeah, I think maybe it would be interesting to see what you have, but not a front burner item for sure. There's enough to do, and if it sounds like from experience that this isn't a real workload for the state's attorney either, I can't imagine would be a big thing. I think Kyle's right. Once people know, well, we're not going to have a rooster there, or if we find out one of them's a rooster, we're not going to keep it very long. That it wouldn't be a super frequent problem, but it would then give people who really despise being woken up at 3:30 in the morning in the summertime a means to at least come to John and have them go out, and it'd probably be taken care of pretty quick.
I feel like I should point out that we have only ever had 2 complaints of roosters. One is the complaint that Mr. Davis refers to. The other one was either last summer or the summer before last, we had a situation in Dewey where we were getting multiple neighbor complaints about a rooster. And that was in a residential district, but it was in Dewey. So one thing for the committee to consider is whether, limit this just as Mr. Davis recommends, and I think he recommended that simply in the hopes that a smaller focus might have more success. But on the other hand, we know that we have received complaints in other residential districts. So one point to decide is, should this only be limited to within 1,000 feet of a home rule municipality, or would you want it to be effective in every residential zoning district?
I would be inclined to not, for the benefit of those folks that become within 1,000 feet of a thing through no fault of their own. Just from personal experience, my farm became in the ETJ because of development that came close that had an effect on things that I may want to do, like subdivide a lot or something. Dewey, I know one rooster could wake the entire town of Dewey up because it's not a very big town. But I also think that people that are in a more rural residential area probably are more likely to, I assume the Dewey situation was resolved in not too much time.
Well, we got several complaints over the course of the summer, but it was resolved in the fall.
Yeah. So I would be afraid that someone, would be within the fringe of 1,000 feet of Dewey on a perfectly legitimate agricultural piece of land that, you know, maybe had a few chickens in a coop and wanted a rooster. And I wouldn't want to broaden it to where we start to affect people that have an actual right to farm almost kind of thing. I think that, you know, in Savoy, in Champaign, on the fringes of that is a different story. You know, Champaign Township just is right up the road from where I live, and you wouldn't know it changed except that you lose your sidewalks and streetlights, and it's not a place where people should have roosters. So maybe keep it here, and then in the future we'll see if this becomes a broader problem. But you don't get a whole lot of complaints from the country, I'm sure. Yep, Aaron?
Comment, I guess, a draft or an ordinance could be written to where it wouldn't necessarily apply 1,000 feet outside of a non-home rule. It'd be just literally the zoned residential area. So, I mean, Dewey's not home rule, and so 1,000 feet outside of it, oh well. The people in town would just have to live with it then, ultimately. I mean, obviously you'd go talk to the neighbor and ask if they just had the one rooster, if they could maybe be willing to forego the rooster. So just a thought there, I guess, if it is an issue out in the county, which we've had one and one, I guess you could say, one out in the county and one now within the 1,000 feet of the home rule. It must be an issue out in the county as well. So I don't know if it's fair, I guess, to not include those people out in the county that would potentially in the future have an issue from my standpoint.
What does the rest of the board think about that? If we're going to do it, do we do it everywhere? I saw a teeny little nod from Mala. Sort of a yes.
Eric,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of tough. I mean, we've gotten 2 complaints. To me, it makes a lot of sense if it's within a home rule municipality that doesn't allow it, because people who live in that municipality would be directly affected by it. But I worry if we're not seeing more complaints that trying to solve a problem that we don't necessarily know if it's actually a problem might cause trouble. So, I mean, I'm a little bit hesitant. I'm not completely opposed to doing it for all residential. But I think right now I'm more inclined to focus on within 1,000 feet.
Of a home rule. Yeah. Why don't we start there? I mean, I understand your point, Aaron. We've got 50% of each, but I guess our most recent is within home rule, and this was the first one that was, in writing and suggested. And I think maybe there is a different level of expectation if you live in Dewey versus if you live in, Dobbins Downs. I think that what, the average resident of that area would think is acceptable livestock in that. So is that reasonable direction for the board, or for staff rather, from the board? Okay. All right. Thank you. We spent some time and some money talking about roosters tonight, so I think that's interesting. Moving on from that, 8A, a draft letter to the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency regarding the notice of application for renewal of federally enforceable state operating permit 730-20205 for Kraft Heinz Co. located at 1701 West Bradley Avenue, Champaign. This is something we talked about earlier, and we're well within the window, I think. And I took time to read the letter. It looks great. I think you also sent it around, or maybe no, it was just in this. But this is basically what we asked for staff to be sent in. And so any discussion on that? John, would you? Well, first I'd entertain a motion to approve it from Chris. A second from, I volunteered that guy over there with the hat. Second by Kyle. Any discussion now about that? Everyone take a chance to read it. Aaron?
It looked good to me. I mean, it's pretty straightforward as to what you're asking, but I mean, it's not asking for necessarily anything, super specifics. I mean, not that they couldn't give you specifics, but it's just a straightforward letter, and it looks pretty good to me. I mean, it spells out what the issues are and just asks them to basically, I guess, do their job diligently. So, looks good. I don't see any fault with it.
Yeah, thank you, John, and staff for that, whoever did it. So, any other discussion? John, did you have anything to add?
No, I just we'll put this on county board letterhead and coordinate with the chair for signature.
Okay.
And the really important thing is that when the permit is in fact available for public review, we're asking them to let us know so that we can actually get a little bit more involved.
Okay. Any other comment? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. Thank you again. All right, moving on to 9, new business items to be recommended to the county board. This is zoning case 086 AT 23, amend the Champaign County zoning ordinance as follows in order to ensure compliance with Public Act 102-1123. I am not going to read all of it, but Liz, make sure that's in the minutes, all 5 parts of this. We've talked about it a lot. It was on the agenda last month. There has been some updates. We did get this email from Sean Widener from the Village of Mahomet, and John has some more input if you want to share that with us.
Sure. I found out late this evening or late this afternoon that the Village of St. Joe is taking the same position as the Village of Mahomet. If the committee finds this proposed change acceptable, they would rescind their protest. And I'm told that even the Village of Philo will be considering this at their board meeting on Monday night. So those results are a complete surprise to me, and I think are a good thing if the committee is interested.
Yeah, I'm certainly interested in those changes. If we can make the municipalities happy, thank you very much for the work to work with them to do that. That was their major complaint with the protests, and we'll find out from Philo, I guess next week you said they meet?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I do want to point out that on your desk tonight, there was another handout, this multicolored handout, and this is actually how we would propose the change to be made. It involves 2 sections of the ordinance. In his proposal, Sean Widener had included the prohibition on waivers as part of the paragraph D. In fact, there is a more relevant portion of the ordinance where that prohibition should go. And so the yellow things on this other handout do everything that Mr. Widener was proposing. It requires the subdivision review unless it's specifically waived, and then it prohibits that subdivision approval from being waived. And once that's in place, I mean, that's a hardline prohibition that no solar farm could ask for a waiver from that requirement. The wording that's in blue, and I apologize for how difficult it is to read, but the highlighting options in Word are not very good. The blue portion goes a little bit further and specifies what is anticipated in this subdivision approval. Again, a solar farm, there should never be a need to build streets for a solar farm. They add very little traffic. And this sort of makes it clear that, plat review, probably sidewalk deferral. I think it's logical that a village would want sidewalks to be constructed on a solar farm property if and when development happened at the far side. Granting of easements for infrastructure and surface drainage, reasonable subdivision application fees. And then the last thing is any other requirement that may be included as a special condition of special use permit approval. Who knows, maybe there would come a time when even the county board would agree that some section of street needs to be constructed. I can't imagine that, but I also can't imagine everything that's going to come up. So the items in blue are optional. It's sort of a CYA. But on the other hand, if the committee is comfortable just limiting it to the things in yellow, we know the villages would agree to that. The blue is, might be a curveball that might get them upset. But again, if they're really only talking about honest subdivision review, that's all that the blue part deals with.
Has anyone, Sean or Tammy, had a chance to see the part in blue?
No, I didn't want to share that until the committee saw it.
Okay. Talked a little bit about this. This is very normal stuff. The part in blue, these are things that they generally have the right to do anyway. So it shouldn't be a big surprise for them. And it does cover our butts, as John said. So one would hope that will be fine with them. What they were really worried about is called out very clearly in Sean's note there at the bottom. If this, if we weren't accepting of these, and I guess we would amend what we're doing tonight. This would be a friendly amendment to it.
Yes. Yeah, we would add this. If the committee agrees with this, we would add it to the amendment that we would forward for the county board.
Yeah, and I thought, I'm inclined, well, I'm not inclined, I'm definitely in favor of this. So I think it answers a lot of concerns for the municipalities that protested, and probably for ones that didn't protest, but still read it and would have concern about what we were doing with it. So, any other comments on adding this to what we're amending this into what is being worked on tonight? Kyle?
I guess I'm a little confused. So the municipality would have to approve. Now, would this be within a certain distance from the municipality?
Yeah, this is all within a mile and a half of a municipality.
Okay. And is this, this isn't something that's going to clash with the state law?
No,
Okay.
no.
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, we started this process before the state law, trying to make the wind farm ordinance more modern and a little better, and add some things that would make it better for, both parties, those for and against. And then we got kind of overwritten by the state, and currently with the recommended denial from the zoning board, we talked about this a lot last month, we would be in jeopardy of violating the state public act, some potential legal problems with that. And as was told to us, we take recommendations from the zoning board as advisory. They're an advisory board, so it's not unprecedented or unheard of to overturn what the zoning board has recommended. We talked a lot, and I was glad that Jim was still here for that meeting, about letting the full board have the time to discuss all of this. And with the addition of these changes, what I would be very interested in doing is sending this to the full county board with a recommended approval with this addendums and the other changes. It makes us in compliance with the state. It still adds enhancements that we're allowed to add. This is one of them, that don't violate the state Public Act. And, you know, it's not a perfect ordinance. I think ours, where we were going, would have been better than what the state came up with, but we can't change that now. But this gives us the best possible ordinance. And again, if not, we fall back on the ordinance from, I think, 13 years ago now, which was great in its time, but is with the parts that were good about that one overruled by the state Public Act anyway. So we would have a lesser ordinance, and we'd be in violation of the Public Act all at the same time. So that's what I would like to do. I'd like to hear that from this committee, and then I would entertain a motion to do so and send this to the full board. So the whole board, you know, Aaron is here alone now as a rural rep because Jim is gone, and I don't know when we're going to get another person in the seat. We would have all of the rural representatives at the full county board so they can all speak to it and we can all vote on it, protest or not. It would be available to everyone to discuss. And I think that's the most fair way to do it. And I also think it's the best path forward in keeping us in compliance with the Public Act and with all of these additions that make it a better ordinance. So, Aaron, do you have, you've had a lot to say about this, and I appreciate all of it.
On this specific addition, I have no problem with it.
That's good.
No, in and of itself, I have no problem, but for the whole thing, I still stand where I stand.
And I don't, you know, as a person who knew a little bit about the zoning board for 10 whole years, I don't want to diminish what the zoning board does by overturning a decision that they made. They do all the grunt work. They listen to all the public testimony. But in this case, their ruling puts us in jeopardy. And I think we need to ameliorate that by overturning their denial to a recommend and send it to the full board. So, any other? Chris?
I'd say let's go ahead and I'll make a motion that we send this to the county board with these changes and for purposes of discussion as with our vote split as it may be. And
All right. Do I have a second for that? A second from Mala. Anything you want to add, John?
I just would like a clarification on if only the items in yellow or if also the items in blue. And again, if you're comfortable with the items in yellow, that's great. That makes things easier. And that we should be talking about the same thing either way, but the blue makes it a little more specific.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with what's in blue. I'm not going to get the phone call. You are. Or make the phone call. I'd actually hope that you reach out to them as soon as possible and let them know. But I'm comfortable with that. I don't think it's going to change their more accepting view of what we're doing here because it has all the stuff in yellow too. And I think I know Sean Widener is probably completely familiar with what you have written here in blue. And I'm pretty sure that Tammy is too. So I don't know about Philo, but this is normal stuff. So is that what you're suggesting? Okay. And that's, okay, very good. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Aye. Okay, that is 4 in favor and 1 opposed. So, and that will be at the full board meeting on the 19th.
On the 19th. Thank you.
All right. Is there other business besides the monthly report? John, do you have anything you'd like to add about the monthly report? Anything stand out?
Just that August was really a very busy month for permitting, and then in September, it's just crashed. And I'm not complaining, because August was really busy. We had folks out on vacation, and it was a hectic month. But I hope we get back to a busy level.
Okay. Oh, and I saw that you're advertising for a position?
Yes, we lost our zoning tech, Isaac. He liked working in the zoning office so much, he got a better job elsewhere. So we're advertising to replace Isaac, and as luck would have it, Lori Busboom, our only ever senior zoning tech, was available to come back on a part-time basis.
Wow.
So Lori is helping us while we're recruiting a new zoning tech. So,
Wow. That would make what, like year 31, 32, something like that?
something like that. It makes my life much easier.
Wow. Aaron?
I'll just say that's great news that she's willing, and at least for me, probably for the whole committee, I would hope, just express to her our gratitude for being willing to do this. I mean, granted, it is only part-time, but just her extensive knowledge and such, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll pass that along.
Yeah, all I can say is wow. So, very, I don't, did you have any, was there bribes involved or?
No, it's just that the understanding was, she'd be brought back at her old salary level, working part-time at her pleasure.
Okay.
So it's a good deal.
Well, she holds all the cards in this situation, so very good. All right, I have no chair's report, and the designation of items to be placed on the not consent agenda is nothing. So this will be not on consent, and it will move forward to the board on October 19th. And if you have any update when you talk to the municipalities, I'm sure the committee would appreciate an email about it. So, with that, unless there's anything else, I call this meeting adjourned at 7:14. Thank you very much, everybody, staff, and everyone who showed up. Sir?
Your drive is this weekend?
Yes, 6:30